Craft beer freaks and craft beer geeks, take a look at this view. This is the view you get from Mahalo Ale Works in Maui. It is unreal, and I'm sitting down here now. I'm going to just make sure the camera's situated properly with Ben from, what's up, Brooklyn, from Mahalo Ale Works. Make sure this is okay. I'm in the picture with you, and I am. Awesome.
Perfect.
What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
Good.
Cool.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for coming. It's a long way from home.
That's what makes it awesome.
Yeah.
It's a lot nicer here than it is at home.
There you go.
Okay, so we should start off with some fun questions, just as a kind of icebreaker, so people get to know you. First question is, if there was a movie made about your life, what would the title be?
Oh, jeez. That is a tricky question. That's, I don't know. Basically, it would be. Changes his mind a lot. I don't know.
Okay, so,
I have no idea.
Yes,
It just I kind of have always just been someone that like gets into like different stuff and goes whole hog on it, and I'm kind of like hit the reset button like career-wise like 3 or 4 times, and I don't know. So who knows? And not even so much changing his mind, but just the path, man. It's all about the journey.
I like that. Yeah. So maybe that could be path. I like it. The path.
The path. There you go.
Here's one for you. Then who's going to be the lead actor?
Oh, jeez. I have no idea. Again, very tricky. We'd have to have different ones for the different ages and stuff, right? See, I'm like, if you're gonna follow through, I'm like, how do you do that? I don't know. When I was a teenager, people used to say I look like Val Kilmer, but I have no idea if I do anymore, or he looks like me anymore. So we'll just say that.
Do it about that.
Iceman. Yeah, right.
Okay. So we're coming live from Mahalo Ale Works. The next question for a fun one again is, where was your favorite place to go get beer when you probably were not old enough to drink beer?
7-Eleven. I mean, 7-Eleven in the ballpark in town. My buddies and I take turns being the 100% DD, and
done.
Yeah, done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Last one. And step. And decoction mashing, is there still a place for it in Brewery?
I think so. For the beer styles we make, it's not quite as important. I think step mashing, especially if you're doing saisons, things like that, and decoction for a lot of we don't really do lagers, so a lot of the decoction brewing stuff isn't. But then you can also get into Partaguile. We've done a few times trying to mess with it.
Nice.
But second running stuff. But yeah, I think step mashing definitely, and then and frankly, people are really taking the craft to certain very specific things. You look at the guys making really good saisons, and most of what they do is very regimented step mashing. So yeah, I think there's still a place for it.
There's still a place. I tend to agree. I think it depends on what you're trying to do.
Yeah,
I don't think it's necessary.
No.
But I'm not getting this passionate here, guys. I'm just I want to just make sure I say I kind of wave to y'all that are there watching.
Cool.
Make sure there's no questions, and if there is any questions, feel free. There's a place. So I believe that the grains, the mountain malts they've been processed to a point, manufactured to a point where they're grown to a point where you can easily.
Oh yeah, totally.
Those starches, sugars.
Yep.
It's about doing some traditional things.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. There's just like you can be a purist for purist's sake, which. Not really my style. The Reinheitsgebot to me is like the most boring thing on the planet.
Right.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, to be a purist because it gets you where you want to be.
Cool.
So if a method is like kind of going to have the end result that you want, sure. But I the people that literally regimentedly follow something specific just to say, oh, we brewed this exactly like the way you're supposed to. Maybe if you tried something different, it'd taste better. I don't know.
I agree. I'm with you. All right, everyone, I'm Larry Payton, Craft Beer with me, and you're watching another episode of Brewers Banter, or listening if you're doing so on a podcast down the road. I am with Ben of Mahalo Ale Works. Ben, if you could please introduce yourself, give us the background of you, give us the background of Mahalo Ale Works.
Yeah, so my name's Ben, and my wife and I, Jacqueline, she and I started this. It took 3 years of actually building, and from the time we broke ground to getting it off the ground, if you will. Maui, things don't happen quickly. From permitting, construction, we're on an island in the middle of nowhere, and so everything gets shipped in. And then COVID happened in the middle of it, all of it. So
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
that added a long process. So, being in the middle, too far in to actually stop, we were already too far invested to go back. And so COVID started and it was like, oh crap, what is this? But I started brewing about 17 years ago. It's about 05. I was a home brewer. After grad school, did a quick stint, spent about a year working for a brew pub and did every single position in the entire brew pub, from dishwasher all the way to manager, just to learn it. And at the end I said, I don't want to do the food part, but I love making beer. And then, long story short, my two cousins and I wanted to start a brewery back in like 06. Didn't have the work experience or the capital to start it, and so I got a job offer. I was in advertising, and so I actually was an art director, creative director.
Oh, wow.
So I got a job offer I couldn't refuse, and took it. I took a paycheck instead of trying to start the.
Yeah. Everyone's guilty.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, being young and go, I'm going to start a brewery. It sounded like a great idea at the time.
Yep.
But you start putting it on paper, it's like, oh man, not so much. But not when you have to borrow everything. It doesn't really, in my opinion, that was kind of scary. So.
Yeah.
So basically, fast forward about 15 years from that, and kind of looked in the mirror. I'd switched industries again. I was wound up in the auto industry for a while and enjoyed it, but after 10 years of doing that, kind of looked in the mirror. It was like, I don't want to do this for another 10 years, and my wife was really pushing me to like do something that I want to do, and the brewery was something I've always wanted to open. I did home brewing, like I said. It just kind of seemed like the right time to do it, where I had had a couple bucks from investments or saving for the years that 15 years working later had enough startup capital, if you will, and looked at it as a sense of like, okay, well, I'm old enough to have some experience, but young enough, or if it goes completely south, I still have time to make it up, but hopefully before I retire, so it's kind of like right in the middle. It was just a good timing was right. She didn't expect that it was going to involve moving to Maui. But and that was, we'd been coming here for years as vacation, but looking at, for me, it was like an awesome opportunity to, there's just not a lot of beer made in Hawaii. And all the other places we looked, there were already tons of amazing breweries. And it was kind of like, okay, that's cool, but it's going to be a challenge because there's already a lot of competition. But at the same time, there's also a lot of built-in customer base. And here in Hawaii, the craft beer culture is not nearly as developed. It's getting there, but you don't have people lined up down the block for can releases. I mean, it's just not a thing, like they do on the mainland. And here, we get tourists from all over the world. Yeah. And like 90% of all the beer that's consumed in Hawaii isn't made here. So many of the tourists that come that aren't beer fans just buy the same beer they drink back home. They buy Corona, they buy Budweiser, but And so the craft beer fans appreciate locally made craft beer. Oh. And they're, some of them are waving, but, thank you. And so that's cool because, we try to use as many local ingredients as we possibly can. Unfortunately, hops, you can't grow in Hawaii. The plants grow beautifully, but we don't have those long summer days to make them flower. Okay. And then it's too humid for most malt. It gets moldy. Yeah. So we have to bring in our grain. We have to bring in our hops, but all of the, the fruits and the flowers and everything, there's so much cool stuff here to use. Wow. And again, not if you're following the Reinheit's boat, but...
Which, no way. Yeah. What's up, Culture Brew Scripture? See that you're on there, man. Cool. You have a question there. He says, I'm coming in late. Jim Moody says, what's in your glasses? Well, Jim, there's actually 12 glasses here of 12 different beers they have that I'm going to be trying. I think it's maybe a good segue to try a beer. Yeah. I'll try a beer while you're answering the question there. Jim, so we'll start from here if you guys want to just take a quick look. We've got the cream ale, crispy girl, the Eldorado hazy, and an oatmeal stout, an English brown, which just won medal. Yep,
they won a gold medal for the in the open category, which is the most entered category for the Hawaii Craft Beer Awards.
There you go. Bang.
And then the Lilikoi Sour next to it won silver, and we had a different sour that took a bronze, actually. And this is a different sour than that one, too. But
Wait, this is awesome. It's like there is no rival. So the Lilikoi Sour, the Mango Pineapple Sour, and then the Hazy Session. And on the other side, we have a red, Irish red.
A Blanc Saison.
Yeah, Saison.
And a Hefeweizen and a Belgian style triple, which is scarily easy to drink at 9.5%.
And I like big beers.
Yeah,
I like big beers.
It's an easy drinking big beer. It's actually
good.
Kind of fun.
All right, so I'm gonna have a sip of a beer when we
Cool.
Let's start with
Cream ales are lightest. So that's basically, we don't make lagers. I was kind of chatting briefly before we went on with him, is that I don't personally like lagers, and so that's not the only reason we don't make them. But I also look at a lager as being something that was created in cold climates. I mean, basically, if you look before modern refrigeration, modern technology, beer was made with the local things, right? And so if you're in Germany, you're in the Czech Republic, you're in all these cold places, you make beer with yeast that likes cold. And we're on a tropical island, and we're at 2,000 feet elevation here, so we don't get hot. But to me, it seems just weird to force a cold-loving yeast, keep it super cold, use a ton of electricity to then, make a lager that really never naturally would have ever been made here. So all of our yeast, we use a lot of Vike, we use a lot of like hot fermenting yeasts, and being solar, we're energy conscious, and we have like the most expensive electricity in the country. It's like over 35 cents a kilowatt, and I think they're raising it all now because of the surcharges and everything. But
so you're using solar, though?
Yeah, we're using solar though, which is cool.
Completely solar?
We are pretty much completely solar. So from a billing standpoint, we still have a power bill because they did away with net metering and we don't have batteries. So we use almost all of our power during the day, and that we get to generate, and we make extra power on the days that we don't brew, but they buy it back from us for 12 cents, and then we pay 35 cents all night to keep the cold rooms cold. So so if you look at it a kilowatt breakdown, I'd have to actually pull the exact numbers. We're really close to being fully solar, but we still have a bit of a power. So, but the payoff, I mean, being in Hawaii, the payoff on the solar is less than 10 years. So it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Why would you not? Exactly. We're located in a little area called Pupalani, which means hole in the heavens. And it's kind of like, if you can see around, there's clouds everywhere except kind of right here. So the weather pattern, the rain line is kind of a mile that way and goes around. Pretty much ideal for solar. We're close to the equator, so you get about the same amount of power all year long. Unlike other places up north, you make tons of power in the summer and then nothing in winter. Kind of funny.
It's amazing, man. And so we got Haleakala over here, right?
Yes. So the lanai's on that side, the balcony and everything looks straight up Haleakala, which is covered in clouds right now. But normally you can see the entire top, and you can even see the little observatory that's 10,000 feet.
Wow.
But right now there's clouds, and then this side you've got the West Maui's, and then the ocean on both sides that wraps around. So.
Wicked. And we're 2,000 feet up.
Yeah, we're at 2,000 feet.
Very cool. Which brewery are you at? IPA guy, yes. So Jim let you know down here at Mahalo Ale Works in Maui, just right next to Haleakala. If you don't know what Haleakala is, it's like
the big volcano.
It's
like the third most prominent mountain in the world. Like as far as mountains that stick out above everything around it. The two other, the Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa on Big Island being the 1 and 2, because most tall mountains have other tall mountains next to them, and we don't. So it's just 10,000 feet to sea level, straight up the side.
Yeah,
so.
it's crazy. Unreal.
Buzzing at 2,000 feet.
Yeah, probably good. Yeah. This cream ale is absolutely fantastic. So I'm getting something different from it, which is an enjoyable thing. So it's got a nice viscosity to it. It's not super dry, which it should be. It has a real smooth taste to it. And I know there's a cream in it. Feel to it. It's super balanced. I'm not getting. I tend sometimes the cream ales can be a little too much forward. This is right.
Thank you.
Smack on. It's very, very well balanced. Super clear.
Thank you. We don't filter anything, so everything's 100% unfiltered. A lot of the beers are crystal clear, just from good flocculating yeast, cold crashing, good technique, if you will.
Absolutely.
But a lot of our beers are not very clear, intentional with hazies, obviously. But then stuff with fruit, you don't wind up. We put all the fruit in on cold side. Everything's secondary on fruit, so you don't get any. The pectin problems really kind of happen if you were to add fruit to your oil. But then your fruit beer kind of tastes like a cherry pie instead of like cooked fruit. I'm not a fan. But there is some handling of the fruit. We actually have we've gone through 1,000,001 things, like trying to screen it on the way out, or trying to rack it differently. But the thing we have now, bright tanks, because we have 4 fermenters on the bottom. They're actually unit tanks, but we use mostly for just fermentation. And then we'll transfer up onto fruit in the upper vessels, and it's all local organic fruit. We don't use any purees from the mainland. We don't use any extracts. We don't use any flavors. So it's literally we have a whole group of farmers, the same ones that take our spent grain, and they just call us and say, "Hey, I got a ton of this. Can you make a beer out of it?" It's like, sure. And so we'll get, all of the, the mango, lilikoi, pineapple, Maui Gold pineapple all the time. And it's such a great pineapple. It's super low acidity.
Yeah, I heard it's better than the Dole.
I agree. I think so. I mean, it's way lower in acid. They're smaller, so it's more work to get pineapple out of them. But they are just really, and they're almost floral. They're like a sweet floral pineapple and not acidic. So kind of crazy.
All right. I just got one of each to put in comparison.
Oh, nice.
So,
okay, cool.
I was taking care of it way over. I've had the Dole a load of times. I've been in the plantation, did the whole thing. But I think it was scared.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
They're
great. And the plantation's actually like 2 miles from here.
Right,
So it's just straight up. We're up in ag country. So most people think of Maui, they think beaches, tropical everything, which is mostly the case. I mean, as far as most people go. And then a lot of tourists go to Haleakala. So there's like 1.2 or 3 million people a year who go to the top. We're on the route heading up there, if you will. But up here, this is farm country. I mean, we got a lavender farm, there's goat farms, there's some of the biggest cattle ranches in the world are actually in Hawaii. You would never think. Like outside, like even some that are like bigger than a lot of them in Texas. Like you've got 50,000 acres here, and it's pretty crazy. So there's thousands of cows up on the side of the hill.
Yeah,
go figure.
Would never knew that. Never knew that. I'm going to sit into another one. I'm going to take the crispy girl now. And that's it. Tell us about a brew day here. Like how often do you brew? I mean, does it go? Not really having to do seasonal brews here, I don't think, because
so
like keeping.
I mean, everything's a seasonal, if you will. Like we don't have core beers. I think we've brewed 70 something times since we opened about 8 months ago, and 50 plus of those have been different. So we brew roughly every 3 days. Each week will be a 2 or 3 brew day week. We're just limited by our fermentation volume pretty much. Using Kvike yeast for a lot of stuff is helpful because it turns faster. But you hopefully will get no diacetyl from anything. We're kind of OCD about diacetyl rest, when needed, anything, because you got to pay attention to hop creep. We dry hop a lot of stuff. So there is time to make it properly. We're not making lagers, so we don't have 10 weeks in tank, 13 weeks, whatever. Our average turn is about 10 days for most beer, which is pretty awesome. Some are longer. The darker beer is longer, obviously. The brown cellars for about a month. And then, in general, a brew day, it's a smaller system. It's not quite, it was custom shaped and whatnot, so it's kind of a 6-ish, 7-barrel system. It's a 5 on paper, but it's an oversized 5. And we have a grist case that I can literally fill the mash tun above the sparge ring and take the sparge ring off. So I mean, it's like we're not limited by by our grain capacity so much. And then the kettle really holds about 8 barrels. So we've been experimenting. Like we were talking about Partagai earlier. We've done a few brews where we actually made a session beer out of the second runnings of an imperial something. That was pretty cool. And then we've tried some high gravity brews. So the cream ale that you had earlier, we've actually done a couple different ways. We've done regular for the first one, and then we just kind of have it on a lot as a light beer for people who, they come in and say, what do you have like Budweiser? It's like, well, nothing, but this is as close as you can get.
Right, yeah.
And the previous batch we do, it's actually high gravity brew, where you do a single brew of a really high grain bill for the beer. You build the recipe with twice the water volume, but I can't fit twice the water in the boil kettle. So you actually wind up taking half the, or 40%, 30%, whatever. You add sterile water to the fermenter, and you knock out a high gravity beer into that water, and you wind up at your exact target starting gravity. So your OG on paper was built to, let's say, be 10 barrels, and you actually brew 7 barrels at a much higher gravity and then add it to 3 barrels of sterile water. And you wind up exactly where you want, because I can't fit 10 barrels of liquid. There's no 10 barrels of work in the boil kettle.
I like that.
So it's a really interesting technique. And then the other option is obviously double batching. So we double batch a lot. So the Idaho, which I don't have at the moment, but it's, and most of our beers are named as descriptions of the primary hop or something like the style. We haven't really yet given any like cool names because we brew so many different beers. Once we have, like, the Idaho is kind of a super bestseller, crowd favorite, and the lilikoi sour. So we'll probably give those names, and then the brown ale as well. They'll get cool names soon, but for now it's just like, so the Idaho is literally Idaho Gem and Idaho 7 hops, so it's called the Idaho Hazy. It is what it is.
Why would it not be, man?
Yeah.
There you go. So I've got a couple of questions here. Sorry. And hello to those who are on. I really appreciate you guys jumping in. Considering stouts do better in the winter, do you make mini stouts?
We do. We actually, being at 2,000 feet, it's kind of fun because on Maui, normally you think beach beer. Being at 2,000 feet, it's chilly up here. You know, it's down in the 50s at night. And I mean, some of you are probably laughing, that's not chilly. But it actually, so my buddy's house where we play poker is like 4,000 feet at his mailbox. And it's down in the 40s at night. I mean, it's cold.
When you're on top of Colorado, it's cold.
Well, the top is freezing.
When the sun drops.
Yeah, it snowed down to 7,000 feet of altitude last year. So it snows, Haleakala gets snow on top, and it came all the way down to 6-something thousand feet last year, which is like the lowest it's been in a long time. But I mean, it's chilly up here, so it's sweater weather. You know, everyone in the mornings I had to get wool house slippers because my house has neither heat or air conditioning, so it's just the temperature of what it is. Yeah. And when I lived like right at sea level before, it would just be hot, and then you never had, the evenings were perfect, you couldn't feel it. Right. Up here, it's like, ooh, it's cold at night. Yeah. So yes, we do. In the evenings, we're super crowded with a large local population that, you know, there's not a whole lot of places to go out up here. And so we're fortunate to have a really awesome fan base of locals that have been coming in at night asking for dark beer. So we've made a handful of porters. We actually have our first 100% nitro beer right now. Is the nitro stout that's actually right there. You can see it. And unfortunately, we poured these a little while ago, and they've been sitting here. So the nitro does a beautiful cascade. You can actually see it on our Instagram. But it's carved to a low CO2 volume in the right tank, and then it's dispensed with 100% nitro. So it gets the gorgeous cascade and everything, but it's still got a little bit of CO2 in it for some body and for carbonic acid. But
and if we get time, afterwards, I can like just go downstairs and show them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we have the flux capacitor. So Naheem Simon is the draft whisperer. You can follow his stuff online. He's kind of one of the preeminent draft experts in America. He just built a flux capacitor for us, which if any of you have seen them, I think there's like less than 20 of them out there, but essentially it's a giant panel that we have 4 different gas blends we can jump between, and then every single line is on its own regulator, its own secondary, and then it's all balanced. We have like a bulk tank, and we've got a nitrogenator, like full nitrogen generator that runs. So we can run everything from 100% CO2 to 100% nitro, and 2 mixes in between. So you get the exact pressure for the exact beer, and we've got a calculator. You basically take the ABV, and you know the altitude comes into effect, and we even have a 1 psi difference between the top shelf and the bottom shelf of our keg rack. I mean, it's pretty trippy. It's like it's all yeah, so it's kind of fun. But you can everything pours exactly how it's supposed to, because like we were, you know, when we first opened, we hadn't gotten that in yet, and we were dispensing with 100% CO2. And before the nitrogenator, the global supply chain is a mess. It took months to get it, and so we had a nitro tank for a minute, and a mixer. Long story short, and you know, if you have a keg on tap at 100% CO2, it's going to just absorb more CO2 than it's intended to have. And that's why most people would dispense with beer gas, but our bulk tank was set to actually carbonate, and long story short, we built the system for the nitrogenator long before that showed up.
That's smart.
So, right? But it was, you know, we suffered through it for a few months, and now it's beautiful, so.
Yeah. That's, it's gorgeous. Yeah, it's gorgeous, man.
Thank you.
Moody says, I think he's telling me to drink up.
Oh.
Beer Making Leprechaun asks if you would any thoughts or any talks about doing a collaboration with Wiki.
Yeah, so I mean, we've reached out and spoken to a few. We're actually doing a collaboration with Makawao. You know, we're down to do collabs with everyone. We kind of were talking to a few of the brewers at Maui, you know, this and that, but we've got a couple collabs coming up from some mainland breweries this summer, and yeah, kind of fun. We'll announce those when we release them. But yeah, Hanakoa over on Oahu. We visited them a few times, and then we did a Pink Boots brew, and their head brewer came over for the Pink Boots brew, and she was like super stoked on it. So yeah, so we've got one lined up, but yeah, we're totally open to do collabs with anyone. They're actually, funny enough, there aren't a lot of collabs done in Hawaii with other Hawaiian breweries.
Right, yeah.
The collabs are all mainland breweries wanting to come do a collab with Hawaii, or Hawaiian breweries just wanting to get out of Hawaii and go do something different.
Yeah.
And you know, they're really, I can't think of a collab off the top of my head that was done between two. I mean, it's just such a small, it would be like doing a collab at the brewery 20 miles away from you at home. It's not that common as opposed to like someone who does similar stuff to you in a different state. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
No, absolutely, man. It does make sense to me though when you say it like that, because doing it with the mainline does make things a bit different. Yeah. I think you're getting off the island. I mean, I don't.
Well, but what it does is it allows people we are a small town in the middle of nowhere. And normally when you live in a small town, you can drive an hour or two to another small town. It doesn't happen. I mean, we're like 2,500 miles to anything. We're only, it was really funny, I was looking at this the other day, we're only like 500 miles further to Russia than we are to California. Like if you look at the part of Russia that comes up near Alaska, so it's kind of crazy. We're out in the middle of nowhere. And so people here that live locally, our beer selection on the shelves is terrible. There was an independent craft distributor that Maui and Stone joined forces and had Maui Stone distribution. And then the local Budweiser distributor wound up purchasing them, and then they just stopped importing all the cool beers. And it was like, we have like literally, there's like maybe 5 independent beers you can get on the shelf here.
I was going to say, so I know that's from Sierra Nevada.
Yep. Sam Adams. Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada. Modern Times in a few spots because there's a little distributor that brings it in. But like pretty much everything else on the shelves, like is now one of the craft beers that's owned by AB InBev or one of the other ones. So it's pretty interesting. So this is all to get back to saying like collabs from breweries on the mainland are super exciting for people who live here at least because they get to try something new, like totally new. Everyone's been to Waikiki Brewing Co. Everyone's been here, locally, or not everyone, but you know what I mean? Like you can get our beer. And so to have beer being made by someone that they can't have normally is kind of fun.
It makes perfect sense, man. It makes perfect sense. It was a great question. Thank you. Do we have any more? Perfecto. So we were talking a little bit about how many days a week do you brew?
2 or 3. Depends on the week. Yeah, it's all. We have 4 primary fermenters and then 4 brights, which is like an inordinate number of fermenters to brights. But for us, like I said, we use them as fruiting tanks, as blending tanks. They're not just for that. So basically, we theoretically on paper brew about every 3 days, but it doesn't always exactly work like that. And some days are a double batch. We did a big Idaho double batch where it's like 2 full-on brews in the same day. Sometimes back to back. So yeah, it's basically 3 days a week, 2 on some days.
Okay. I just El Dorado is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's delicious. Again, there's no hop bite to it at all. It's so beautifully done.
Thank you. That's a new hazy we just came out with. It's a lot lighter body. The Idaho is a full-on orange juice in a glass. Oh, wow. And it's like, we just ran out. It was kind of bummed. Like we ran out of a few days ago before you got here. But that's just because that shows the spectrum of everywhere from the session hazy up to like the Idaho. It's like so much oats and wheat, and it's just like, it's a lot of mouthfeel.
This is nice.
Thank you. El Dorado is probably, off the top of my head, 6 something. I could pull it up in a couple seconds. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's high 6s.
There's no warmth to it. There's no alcohol.
Yeah.
It's so smooth.
Thank you.
Man, thank you. Unreal. Okay. That was delicious.
Yeah, that's on the medium spectrum body-wise for our hazies.
Delicious, absolutely.
And you may want to bounce around. I apologize, I poured the flight store menu, the way the menu boards, and everyone can see it when it's on. So we have these really cool things called Vesta boards, where like the old split flap displays. They go, and there's actually an API from them because you can control them from our phone or from an iPad, but you can actually see the live version of our menu on the website.
Oh wow!
And it like does this little spinny thing on the site and shows you. So when we put on a new beer, because it happens every few days, we put on a new beer, and we've got a few in the back like just waiting. So as soon as one thing runs out, we put it on the spot. So the beers on the menu aren't in a specific order of anything in particular, other than like whatever ran out, something else took its place.
Okay, gotcha.
So I poured these got poured in the menu order. So bouncing around a little bit. Like I said, skip the sours; they're a bit palate wrecking. Yeah, I mean you could do the half or the red or anything in there. Yeah.
Do you still brew?
I have not brewed in several months. So I was on the brew deck when we first opened for all the beers, and we were fortunate enough to be busy enough in the beginning where I had to just basically step away. I work on the business more than I work for it. I'm the glorified repairman, delivery guy, errand runner, and then doing the business stuff. Yeah. So my wife handles the social media, the merch. Like we do this awesome, we have a whole section of all local Hawaii-made stuff. We're doing collabs with a few of them. And we've got hot sauces, there's soaps, there's cookies. We have ladies using our beer to make this cool goat milk soap using the oatmeal stout.
Wow.
We're doing a collab with Maui Cookie Lady that's about to drop next week, where they used our beer for a cookie they did. Donut Dynamite, she used like 3 of our beers to make donuts and came up here. We had a whole donut release, and it's kind of fun. But yeah, so then my wife one spouse that loves beer and the one that doesn't. So we've got at least a dozen wines by the glass. They're all really good.
Nice.
So.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, how do people get their hands on your beer? So,
You come here.
you have
We do crowlers, yeah. So we actually bought a small canning line. We have a Wild Goose Gosling, which is a pretty awesome all-in-one automated canning line. But we don't have the space to run it, if that makes sense. We bought it. There was like a 3-month lead time, and when COVID first started, and we were kind of like, oh crap, we don't know if we're going to actually be able to open a tasting room. And this is built as a tasting room brewery. And so, not knowing if the tasting room could open, we ordered a canning machine. And I just physically don't have space to store pallets of empty cans or pallets of cold full cans. So it was kind of sitting there. I'm probably going to sell it, but we were kind of thinking maybe we'll do some like really short canning runs. And it's a lot of work to clean and prep a canning line to run off, a couple barrels. It's just, it doesn't pencil, that's for sure. But yeah, so we do crowlers, and then our beer is currently on tap at Marlowe, although I don't know if they're going to, I think, so Marlowe's the restaurant next to us, and when we first opened, they actually had our beer on tap a week before we opened, which was pretty cool, but they're getting so busy now, he's actually having to pull out the kegerator to make a bigger refrigerator space for food, and it's, it's kind of trippy, but we may have our beer on tap at Pint and Cork too, down in Wailea. It's a cool little beer gastro pub down in the shops of Wailea, but in general, right now, we sell everything here at the tap room. So.
Do you get much visitor tourist traffic?
We do, yeah. We're starting. Because when we haven't done a ton of advertising, it's all word of mouth. So most of the tourists that come are people looking for beer. There are people that know how to find breweries, things like that. And we will eventually, hopefully, get all the tourism traffic that's just going to Haleakala and want somewhere cool to stop and watch, if you will. But right now, we get tourists throughout the day, and then, like I said, a larger evening crowd. We get really busy in the evening. We do live music a couple days a week. We do trivia on Tuesdays, and it's packed. Trivia is nuts. It's pretty funny. But yeah, so we had a 3-page article that just came out in Hawaii Magazine about us in the current issue, which is kind of cool.
Right, and so I don't want to interrupt you, but I think this is something very impressive to bring up, is that you have been named Hawaii's best new brewer. Yeah,
which is kind of cool. And there were 3 of us that year, but I will say I'll take it. Best of 3, sweet. We were really stoked. We'd only been open about a month when you had to enter all of the stuff, and it's the Hawaii Craft Beer Awards. And so there are 20 some odd breweries in Hawaii, sort of like our state beer competition, if you will. And yeah, we got 4 medals in the competition, which was pretty awesome. So it was fun. We're hoping to get a lot more next year. And we weren't open long enough for us to have anything that I felt I was going to pay to try and enter a GBF or anything like that. But I'm hoping next year we'll have it dialed enough to be able to actually have something.
I'm pretty damn impressed.
Well, thank you.
I'm not big on the clove side of that. It was much more on the banana side.
Much more on the banana side.
That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Absolutely delicious.
I appreciate it.
Jim Moody 709 asks, what is your favorite hop to work with, and what hop haven't you brewed with yet but want to?
Wow. Favorite hop? I don't know that I have one, but I have a handful. Mosaic for me is kind of a really fun hop to use because so Mosaic changes other hops more than I think it has a distinct, unique flavor of its own. So Mosaic is kind of like when you want to throw a fractal lens in something and see what it does, and so it's kind of like really cool. You put Mosaic in it. I'm also really partial to Idaho 7, Idaho Jam, and then Eldorado, like the one, like pretty much the tropical range of hops. I don't have one. And we use Citra a good amount, but that's kind of like everyone thinks Citra is the best hop, and it is a very good one, but it's.
I think it's a good hop. I think it's also one of the ones that most people might say that they feel is overused.
Yeah, I feel like it has the best brand recognition, if you will, for people who aren't really hopheads, but like, oh, Citra, I've heard that's really good. You know what I mean? It's like,
citrus. It's very easy.
Yeah, exactly. And the Citra, when we use it, I don't know if it's like the yeast we're using or whatever, it goes really grapefruity for us most of the time, which is cool. We actually did a grapefruit IPA using local, what was the name of it? It was Oro Blanco. So it's a white sweet grapefruit, and then we did Citra hops with it, and then some Centennial, and it just kind of really amplified the grapefruit flavor. But it was really funny because we had some people coming in, they're like, yeah, I really liked it, but it just wasn't super grapefruity. I'm like, that's because it's not grapefruit extract. It's real grapefruit juice, and it's not, you know what I mean? Like the flavor of real fruit tastes like real fruit. It doesn't smack you over the head. It's not like eating a juicy fruit or something. It's yeah.
No, exactly. I've also brewed with fruit a lot of times as well, and it does have its challenges, but I do find it has the best results.
Yeah.
Also, I brewed for Christmas for my daughter. I brewed a cranberry pilsner.
Oh, nice.
It was a bit stressed about it again.
Yeah.
The techniques that might have been caused.
Yeah.
However, put in some enzyme, crashed secondary, like you said.
Yeah.
It came out beautiful, very light pinkish.
Oh, cool.
Oh my god, it was
That's
fantastic.
awesome. That's
It
cool.
turned out so well. So if you're doing it right, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I've also had some issues with, I think one I used was dragon fruit. I don't think I got any taste.
Well, so dragon fruit's funny. So dragon fruit, it's some people refer to it as the supermodel of fruit because it's like all looks and no substance. You know, it's to be stereotypical, if you will.
Yeah.
But they're actually the Makawao farms that we get a lot of our fruit from. They grow the best tasting dragon fruit I've ever had in my entire life. Because dragon fruit doesn't really taste like much, but their dragon fruit tastes like a floral kiwi.
Oh, wow.
It has so much flavor, and it's mind-blowing. It's the pink one, so that you can get them in white or pink.
Yeah.
And they do a pink one, and it's like the red juice runs down your hand when you slice it, and it's just like the sweetest, most flavorful. It's still not like crazy fruit flavor. A lot of dragon fruit, a lot of places that make dragon fruit beer actually put a tiny bit of cherry flavoring in to fake the dragon fruit, because the dragon fruit itself doesn't actually have any flavor. But we haven't brewed with dragon fruit yet because it's also the quantity of fruit needed to get any flavor across in the beer. They literally don't even grow that much.
No.
We cause a lilikoi shortage on the island every time we brew a lilikoi batch, and like all the restaurants were getting pissed at us because we were literally like we would buy we were buying like 50 pounds of lilikoi juice. And if you've seen a lilikoi is passion fruit, for those that don't know. It looks like it looks like a tennis ball that's shiny, and you crack it open, it's like a shell, and inside is some goo with seeds in it. Now imagine juicing that and getting the little bit of a juice out of the, it's crazy. So we like buy the entire farm out of lilikoi when we do it.
Wow.
Kind of fun.
Wow, that's awesome. We got someone that said, oh yeah, love the view, great view. Hey, what's up, Vern? Nice to see you. Moody says, yeah, I think Mosaic is the best hop. He says, if it's in the beer is in me.
Nice. Yeah, it's a fun one because it's just like I said, it kind of changes, and if you pair it with anything, and I find there's a difference too between regular Mosaic and cryo. And so the cryo Mosaic we'll use for like dry hopping. It's kind of like, it just adds like this extra layer of like moving stuff all over the place, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, hence the name. I think that's why they named it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like a mosaic,
That's-
like
okay.
a tapestry, if you will.
Wow, I did.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It does make sense, man. Okay, so you need to come here to get the beer. You guys have been open for 8 months. You had said we're at 2,000 feet. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's just coming in. We're at Mahalo Ale Works, and right here in Maui, man. And it's absolutely beautiful here in ag country.
Yeah.
They brew about 2 to 3 times a week here. Tell us about your brewers. You have, is it 2 brewers?
2 brewers, yep. So Sarah and Rob, and they both have brewing experience at different places, and it's kind of fun because they work really well together, and they're both super OCD clean freaks, which is you have to be, and you know it's tricky because a lot of brewers are really into, you know, the beer and the recipes and this and that, but they don't like the sanitation part. And if you're in a huge brewery where you have layers of production people to clean up behind you, maybe that works, but like we do everything here, you know, and it's our bartenders are like full on from everything from bar back to the front, you know, to the top bartender, etc. We don't have like the people and then there's like the bar backs behind it, and same thing in the brew house, you know, they alternate hot side, cold side. Sarah's been doing more on the hot side and Rob on the cold side, but they both have a cold side background, so they actually really appreciate the sanitation part, which is pretty awesome.
Listen, it doesn't surprise me because even just looking around here, one of the first things that caught my eye about this place is that it is immaculately clean. Like everything is. It's very, but it is. I mean, it really is. Everything seems very, very well organized. There didn't look to be a hose out of place down there.
Yeah.
It was just everything was taken good.
Thank you.
So,
They take pride in the brew house, and we take pride in the tap room. And it's funny. I mean, it's like it's open, so everyone sees it. It's kind of like being in a fancy restaurant where the kitchen's open and everyone sees it.
Yeah.
So I mean, imagine if you could see the kitchens at a lot of restaurants. You're like, you know, by being on display, it forces you to make things look nice. You know.
I've been in some restaurant kitchens.
No. It's like, dude, if people can see it, it damn well better be clean.
It's not good, man.
Yeah.
It's not good.
That's
This is the brown that I'm quite looking forward to. This was a gold award winner
Yep.
recently. In
Yep.
the
Hawaii that's one of my favorites. It's funny because it's an underproduced style, and that was the first beer I ever homebrewed with my two cousins. We made a good English brown, and it was just kind of it was, and it's really funny because it was like the best batch we'd ever made for like the next year. Like we just, for whatever reason, that first time, maybe everything was perfectly clean the first time, and we weren't so good after that. I don't know, but it was like it just really kind of hit home. And the brown, we actually sell a lot of it. It's really weird because it's not. If you look at like national sales rankings, brown's way down there. Absolutely. You know what I mean? It's all the hops, it's all this, and I mean that has some fuggle in it to balance the malt. That's it. There's no hops are not playing a role in that other than balancing the sweetness.
It's a little bit of a smoke on the nose.
Yeah, it's got a tiny bit of roast to it. Still within.
It almost has like a.
Yeah, it does. There is chocolate malt in it.
There you go.
Yeah.
So very.
Yep.
It's very full beer. I mean, it's got a full body to it.
Yeah.
It resonates and it sits in your mouth, back of your throat for a while because it just lays. It just sits. Right? But I find as well it doesn't overstay as well.
Cool.
It's there and and then I don't know. You want more. So
cool.
it's not so. I mean, it's surprising that your brown is one of your best, or not your best seller, which is very. I don't think I've ever heard that from anyone.
It's not. I mean, it's not our best seller, but it sells. It's in the top. You know what I mean? It's really funny, and it's for the style. We sell way more of it, and it could be just like I said, the altitude. It's a little colder up here, and then our customer base spans the whole age range. But I will say that like middle-aged and older people tend to really like the brown. You don't get young people coming in ordering the brown so much, but it's you get like all of the retired people up country come in and they'll drink tons of brown. It's so funny because it's a style that used to be really popular. I mean, I used to drink a ton of Newcastle back in the day, and Newcastle, in my opinion, isn't even like that great a brown, but it's super refreshing. It's easy to drink. But as a 21-year-old. Newcastle was like, oh, that's awesome, because back then, 20 plus years ago, you couldn't get that many cool things.
Well, that would be cool. Yeah. And I've had someone else on the show that said that was the beer that they said was semi the craft beer that got me into drinking.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you'd consider that a craft beer. Probably not.
No,
it's and at the time I couldn't stand Sierra Nevada, so it was really funny. So Sierra to me tasted like soap. And I had to hops, bitterness became an acquired taste that I absolutely love now. But the first time I had a Sierra, I literally was like, oh God, did they not rinse this glass out? This tastes like soap, it's terrible. And some people were like, oh, that was the moment they realized craft beer was amazing. It wasn't for me, because I really used to trend much more towards the Belgian styles. I especially not liking lagers myself, which is, sacrilegious among brewers, but I do literally Belgian doubles, the brown Belgian range, it's just phenomenal. Westmalls, and just Westvleteren, they're just so good. And that was really, Belgian stuff, I would consider craft, even though it's not modern craft, that's really what got me into loving beer, was Belgian beer.
I think it's making a comeback. So so back in Nova Scotia, the two most recent homebrewers competitions were Big Spruce put out to do a double, and Smokehouse put out to do an ESP.
I feel how funny.
Actually a move towards these old school beers. Right?
We just had this conversation yesterday about brewing an ESP because one of our house yeast strains we use is a yeast called Verdant, and Verdant it's basically English ale, the yeast, that was modified by Verdant Brewery, not modified, I should say, just cultivated over many, 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 many generations to be much more tropical fruit forward. A lot of people use, English ale yeast in hazies, right? Well, Verdant is English ale to the next level to use for hazies, and that's what we use for our house yeast for our hazies. And you can get it in a dry format. It's super easy to work with. Yes, it is. It's a Lallemand brick you can get, or pouch if you will, for homebrew. And so but it's awesome because it's a cultivated strain of English ale yeast, and so you can actually do some really cool tropical stuff with it. And then that is the Saison. Yes. Yeah, this panel kind of wound up being the Belgian, French, etc.
I'm really enjoying it. This is great. This is awesome. It's awesome.
Very cool.
Fantastic beers.
I'm gonna have to text one of my people to bring me up another one. I'm almost
I know. We need more beer.
Yeah,
So the ESP, I'm pretty proud of my ESP place.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which was very cool. But I do see that there is a resurgence of old school beers. So when we talk about the lagers, and I do think that pills and lagers are starting to come back. And we spoke a little bit about Kvike. You could do a lager at a high temperature and fast with Kvike. Is that something that's thought of? I mean, it's a soda.
Yeah, like a log ale. I mean, that's like that. So basically, like the cream ale, that actually is a Kvike yeast. So the funny thing is, my two brewers and I, it's like we all have very different palates, which is awesome because he'll love one, she'll love it, I'll hate it, or vice versa. So it's kind of fun to see, who picks up what. And the Kvike yeasts do have a different flavor to them, even when they're super clear. Like we use Lutra, right? So Lutra, super clean, super clear. It still has a note you can detect. You know what I mean? And so, but Lutra fermented cold it's going to be like as clean as most lager yeast without the sulfur. Which for me is a plus. But the cream ale is the closest we've gotten to like a lager type. But yeah, we could do. It's been thrown around. Just do 100% pills, something clean, crisp, Lutra, let it sit there.
I mean, it's something that can be pushed fast. And I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. Because it's not going to take space. And that's what I like.
Yeah.
I see a lot of commercial brewers being interested once again because I think lagering it's not being done. And it's money. It just sits there and it takes up space for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And it's not a beer that you're going to charge more money for.
No, and that's the weird dichotomy when you look at like lager has been like the predominant thing in America, right? So you look at Budweiser and they make so damn much of it. And it's so cheap that people look at it as like a commodity product almost, and yet on the small scale, lagers take 3 times longer, or 4 times, 5 times longer in tank, and you're like, but people expect it to be cheaper because lagers are used to being cheap. So it's fascinating. I mean, I've been to Bierstadt Lager House in Denver. They do some amazing stuff. Slow pour pills. I've been to most of the breweries in the Czech Republic, Germany, etc. And for me, it's not my thing, but I can see why people like it. I do like dark lagers, so I'm not 100% anti-lager. I'm not anti-lager. I don't drink them. But I do like Postritzer, like a German, like a black lager. It has just enough malt to hide the sulfur for me. Because like I told you, I only get sulfur out of lagers. Even the best ones, everyone said, "Oh, you haven't had this one." I call my palate weird. It is what it is. There's other notes I can't taste at all. I can't taste diacetyl. So there's actually like. I did a sensory analysis training thing with all the, they taint the beers and do all this stuff. It was pretty cool. And I couldn't detect the diacetyl one. The guy's like, "Oh, how many people cannot detect the diacetyl or have no diacetyl?" And like 10 of us in the crowd raised our hands. And he's like, "Congratulations, you're in the 5% of people that just are missing the ability to taste it." And yeah, I mean, if traveling around, I'm like, I've never had a diacetyl bomb. This is great. You can actually detect the slickness on your tongue, and then one of my brewers is like can smell it when he walks into a brewery. So I've got my diacetyl tester built in. So
he's got a nose on it.
Yeah, well, they both. It's just for that, like diacetyl. And it was funny because Adam DeBauer from Austin Beer Works was out here not too long ago. And he literally was the guy who told me, he's like, "Dude, I can tell if diacetyl's in a beer from like across the bar." And so like it was pretty cool because we didn't have any beer, so he was like really stoked on that. But it was like, but if it were left up to me, I mean, it would just take me longer because I'd give everything a really long diac rest because I can't tell if it is. So, funny. It's a mixed blessing.
It's not a good blessing to have a good brew.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, but if you are just a beer tourist, then yes, that's
exactly.
Tap under, that's a great thing to have. That saison was beautiful. Nice on the coriander. You can definitely get the belt together. Absolutely. Again, it wasn't overly complex, which I liked. It gave you the smooth taste. It gave you the coriander, a little bit of a hit you would expect, and it resonates really well. So,
thank you. Yeah, I want to tweak that one too. That one came out. I like it, but I want to go even drier. Like I like really dry saisons, and so we may do some amelo in the next one and see if we can really get it dry it out even more, which would be kind of fun. But,
nice. I wouldn't say it's overly dry.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's what I'm like. My next saison is going to be a super dry one. I get like that crisp table beer, if you will.
I got you. Yep, I got you.
Kind of fun.
It's nice, man.
That's the nice thing about not making core beers. We just make something different. It's like, oh, let's try this and let's do this.
And that has the kind of people coming back.
Yeah. Yep.
We spoke about this off camera that you will have your core flagship kind of people that just want the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think times have changed. People don't want it because they've drank Budweiser their whole life.
Yeah.
At least the next generation, or it could even be our generation. Although I feel more of me.
Yeah.
But and then just trying to help me.
Thank you. But that's cool.
Well, you have your fourth kid.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're a little older for that, but yeah, we've got our a fourth bonus baby, if you will. So yeah.
You are busy now.
Yes.
Like
indeed.
running a brewery hasn't been enough. You're like,
Yeah, and our excuse me, the third one, she was born the week of the lockdown. So we've got an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old, and one on the way. And the 2-year-old was born March of 2020. So the week the island locked down, the stock market plummeted, everything, Jackie went into labor. It was like, oh, and we were in the middle of construction, and we had a huge construction loan that had been approved for like 7 months. We got a letter in the mail saying like 2 days after she was born that said, we're sorry, we no longer offer this product. All the banks started pulling loans because of COVID and everything. So we were sitting there going, ah!
You can laugh now. I bet you.
Yeah, oh dude, it was a long year.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Wow.
And as I mentioned, maybe off camera too, I said we were already too far in to go back at that point. It's like when you're swimming the English Channel, once you hit that midpoint, it's you just keep going. You can't go back. I mean,
100%. Just from I did a recent off-road side-by-side trip. And these guys, they had a ridiculous amount of disposable income for what they were doing.
Yeah.
Anyways, you hit this point where it's like,
Yeah.
I just got to keep going.
You got to keep going. Exactly.
You got to keep going, man.
You're so far in, you can't go back.
It's not happening.
Yeah.
This is obnoxious. This is just seriously. It's amazing.
Thank you.
It's like ridiculous. Though.
Thank you.
I'll
have to pour you a fresh one too. It's like the head on that one for the nitro. You get a full pint. You get like a full 2-finger pour, and it just sits there for like just like velvet.
It is, but it has remained velvet.
Good.
That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Holy Jesus,
Thank
man,
you.
that's great.
That's our oatmeal stout. That one just dropped last week.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
And it only dropped last week.
Yeah, we just released it last week. Yeah, it's six different malts and 2 oats. Although the next time we make it, I think I'm going to throw in. It actually doesn't have flaked oats, which is funny because we were trying to not have it too heavy.
Okay.
But I may play around with a little bit of flaked oats. So it actually has golden naked oats and malted oats.
Okay.
And golden naked oats are a pretty cool ingredient. I don't know if any of the home brewers, but it's pretty awesome. They look like. Sugar Smacks, the cereal.
Oh yeah.
And like it adds like this nice. It's a kind of a fun ingredient to use. But.
Wow. I don't know what it's doing. I don't find this one heavy at all, which is actually nice. It for an oatmeal stout, it's very very smooth on the lighter side, but full of flavor still. Beautiful chocolate.
Thank you.
Hit on it. That's. It's not a milk chocolate, but it's not a dark either. Some
Yeah.
It's just really,
Yeah.
No man, buddy. Okay, so the name. There's people probably watching that don't know what Mahalo
Man,
is.
yeah. So Mahalo, I mean, most people know it for like the literal translation of thank you, but it kind of is more like a thankfulness, if you will. And it for us, it was really kind of, I mean, we look at names for a million things. Both my wife and I actually went to grad school for advertising. We both work in the ad industry. And she's a copywriter, and I'm an art director. And, but it was really funny because it was sort of like, I mean, the name means so much, and there's this double-edged sword about using Hawaiian names and trying not to be offensive because it's like, appropriating culture that's not yours, etc.
Oh, okay.
And so, and so we had to be very conscious of that. And not try to do anything. I mean, there's breweries in the mainland that are named like full-on Hawaiian names.
Right.
And I mean, that's cool. They want to do that, but like people here don't think that's so cool. And so for us, it really is like, the culture in Hawaii. It's all about like, pono. It's like doing what's right and like the whole aloha spirit of just being friendly to each other. And dude, like when you're pulling out into traffic, people want to stop and like wave you in. I had to drive on the mainland for the first time in a couple of years, like last month, and it was like, I'm sitting there honking and trying to squeeze in, and
that's crazy.
Nobody honks here. You don't use your horn,
no.
and like you literally pull out into traffic, and there might be one car that will go by before someone lets you in. And so the Mahalo thing was just really kind of like this like thankfulness for like being able to be here, do this, use the local ingredients, kind of, try to have a lot of respect for the land and the people, and like our sustainability, we have like so much stuff built in that's just trying to be as sustainable as possible. Just be a good neighbor, if you will. And it's sort of like give thanks to the people coming, give thanks to, the ingredients. And we had a full Hawaiian blessing done at the brewery when we opened, which is pretty amazing.
Wow.
And, they come in and do, they bless all the equipment and the whole area. And you're like asking permission from the ancestors to use the land, which is cool.
These are very respectful here.
It's this cool level of respect and just like of taking care of one another. Again, small island in the middle of nowhere. If you're a jerk, there's nowhere to go. Everyone knows. It's like, you can't have a bad reputation to get very far on an island.
Absolutely, man. Listen, and that to me is, people. I love the Aloha spirit.
Yeah.
I absolutely do. When I came here, I couldn't believe it for the first time, and we've been here several times now, and there's no place like it.
Yeah.
I really think there are places that are beautiful, places that are great for their own reasons.
Yeah.
There's some special out here.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think it's great when you start talking about just the ancestral history that's there, and how much it's still expected to be respected.
Yep. Very much.
Yeah, very cool,
much.
man. Very cool. Okay. I'm gonna have some of these ones. What I do before we end off, because I don't want to keep you too long. Obviously, I've had a few more. Give me the opportunity to anything I forgot to ask, anything that you'd like to say. I mean, this is your time or whatever.
Yeah, no, I mean, basically just that, that it's a passion project my wife and I were fortunate enough to be able to do, and after so long, it just feels cool to do it. It's hard work. I mean, this isn't, we didn't do this to,
Get rich.
Yeah, exactly. The cost of making beer in Hawaii is mind-boggling.
Oh.
I mean, the electricity, all the grain costs me twice as much than it does in the mainland, because the shipping costs as much as the grain does in the first place.
This is lovely.
Thank you. Is that triple? Yeah. Thank you. That'll sneak up on you too. And just that I'm fortunate for her to give us the opportunity to do it. She really was the one who pushed me after all these years. I wanted to do it, to be able to come out and do this, and then be willing to pack up with 2 small kids at that point, move here. We sold our house in the mainland to finance this and do it. And it was just like this awesome thing, and basically for me to be able to be somewhere where there's so many cool local ingredients. I mean, the fruit, like I was saying, and I can't remember if it was briefly off camera or here, but basically we get calls from the farmer that's like, dude, come try this fruit, and we get to experiment it and make beer out of it. That's pretty awesome. It's a pretty cool thing, and basically we have, the tap room is family friendly, because having kids of our own, obviously we had to make it family friendly, and so we've got 2 levels. It seats about 200 people, and it's just a fun place to hang out, and it's usually very energetic, lively, families and stuff, which is cool because, again, on the mainland, people are used to kind of like brewery culture, if you will. And here, Maui Brewing Co. is amazing. I mean, it's like this massive facility, and they have beer gardens and all this stuff. But it's not like there's breweries all over. The people in Hawaii are used to being to go to a place, and we've got German beer garden tables downstairs, and like that's just not a thing you find those places. So it's kind of fun to bring a little bit of that, and then having customers have to learn that you order at the counter, and then asking them to like bring their glassware back and stuff. It's just not something that's normally done here, so it's just kind of all a bit of fun process. But yeah,
I love the place. I do want to take a second though to give respect to Jacqueline. I think she sounds just like my wife. Very supportive. I am where I am because of my wife. Likewise, had to move, give up things, and move away to follow. And it sounds very much like Jacqueline as well. In terms of always wanting to just do what's on your can, find it, live it, right? And so, huge respect to you, Jacqueline. It's an absolutely beautiful brewery. It's only 8 months old, but it looks so new, but still has a vibe that seems old.
Wow, thank you.
Which is, I would not walk into here and go, this is I don't know. It's so new. It's like it's not broken in yet. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
It's fantastic. The staff downstairs were great. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, so we're going to end off on some fun questions again.
Okay. Before you do, take a sip of the Lilikoi Sour. I just want to see your. So the Lilikoi Sour is actually like our best-selling beer, and it's passion fruit again. But this is, if you've ever cracked open a ripe, raw, just straight up Lilikoi, that's what it tastes like. And it's sour. That's like 2.3 pH. It's low. Yeah, 2.3. Like it's a sour. That is not. That's why I said save it towards the end because it's a bit of a palate wrecker. But we have a lot of non-beer drinkers who come here just for that.
I'm still
so it's kind of fun. Yeah. Oh yeah, that'll get you.
Wow.
That'll get you.
And it's like a long sour. I don't know. It's not one that just kind of grabs you right away. It just sits there and stays and stays.
Yeah. It's like puckers up the back of your throat.
Yeah.
But literally, if it's not quite Lilikoi season, you might still find some stragglers around. If you get a chance to eat a fresh Lilikoi, that's literally what it tastes like. Maybe I shouldn't have done that on camera. I'm like, I don't know. But it literally, it's one of our best sellers. It's so funny. The pineapple mango one is not as sour, but it's still pretty sour.
That was awesome.
But,
it's absolutely delicious. Like, it's phenomenal. But holy crap!
It's like a sour warhead in a glass.
Yes. If you have a problem in the morning, seriously, one of these will wake you the hell up. You will boom. You know.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll end up with some fun questions. The first one is what beer, if it was ever accidentally spilled on a dirty table, would you still use a straw to save as much as you could?
Oh, jeez. Pliny the Younger, maybe?
I've not had Pliny the Younger.
Younger. So I did my bachelor party at Russian River. So talking about beer geek, and people are like, oh, we're gonna go, Vegas or do whatever. No, we went to Russian River Brewing Co. and drank way too much Pliny and everything else. But Pliny the Younger, I think it's only once a year that they brew it. But it's just an epic beer. You know, you don't want to waste it.
How much different is it from the other?
It's quite a bit different. It's just more, is how I would describe it. It's just more of everything. I guess. Wow. Yeah, but it's different. But, and it's funny too because Heady Topper. We actually did a beer recently that was more in the vein of a Heady Topper, where I love Heady, and I hadn't had Heady in years because you can't buy it here. And I had a customer bring me a can recently, and it was like I forgot how bitter it was. And so then shortly thereafter, I brewed a hazy with much higher bitterness than we had before, just to kind of replicate that, if you will, because it was like you just forget, and so many of the hazies wind up being just like too sweet. But so Heady's another one that I just love.
Right. The Grape Kitchen. He's over in the UK. Says join late. Whereabouts are you? I'm in Maui, in Hawaii, here with Mahalo Ale Works. And what's the name of the town again?
This is Makawao is the address, but Hukalani is really the area where everyone would identify. It's upcountry.
Upcountry.
So we're on the slope of Haleakala, the volcano.
Thank you. Okay, so a beer you would slurp up. What is the best hangover food?
Best hangover food? A greasy cheeseburger with an egg on it.
Okay, I just need to know this to know.
Yeah, or the triple in your future.
Yeah, the triple that is so not a one and done for me. I would want to.
We do a 12-ounce pour of it though. This is 9.5, and it doesn't taste at all like 9.5.
No.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the one. Do you know a position in the game of rugby?
I do not.
All right, good. Most common answer, which is what may surprise you, is there actually is a position in the game of rugby called hooker.
Oh, really? Okay.
My
Cool.
daughter's rugby player.
Oh, nice.
But she's not a hooker.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yes. No.
That's funny.
Okay. Why is it? And so these are kind of off the cuff ones. But why is it cleaners seem to be able to get 99.9% of germs? Like what's holding out this? I mean, it's 2022. Why can't we get that last 0.1%?
Yeah, you'd think you'd get it all, but I don't know. Some tiny crack or crevice somewhere it couldn't get into. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty funny.
All right. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 8 is 16. 16 plus 16 is 32. 32 times 32 doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm like sitting around. Keeping up. Yeah.
That said, out of 10, how much fun did you have on the show today?
10. That's great.
Awesome, man. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Glad you came.
Listen, it's been awesome. And typically we do a challenge. My last question is not a question, it's a challenge.
Okay.
The challenge is as follows. We will have to do this off camera. But the challenge is as follows. I will chug a beer. If you either chug a beer with me, or you make 3 attempts at blowing your own beer.
I'll have to take you up on the beer chugging.
We'll do the chugging thing, so we're going to do it off camera. It's going to happen.
Nice.
Listen, man, thank you very much, brother. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it, Ben. It's
Yeah.
been an absolute pleasure, guys. Mahalo Ale Works, look, if you're on the island at all, you get out to Maui, get out and visit. Support these guys are absolutely phenomenal. The beer's fantastic. It's delicious. I'm going to bring some Prowlers back, and they will be available for $1,200 a can. If you buy 2 cans, free shipping.
Nice.
Now, it's absolutely fantastic, guys. Beautiful view, beautiful place. The customers that were here earlier, it's great people.
Yeah.
It's a must stop. It's an absolute must stop.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you're doing the road to Hana, stop here. If you're going to Haleakala, stop here. If you're not doing either of those, stop here.
Well, the fun thing with upcountry is it's just totally different. Than, if you're tired of the resort all day, every day, and you just one day upcountry you can visit. We've got lavender farms, goat farms, several vegetable fruit farms, the botanical gardens. There's the other pineapple plantation you can do a whole tour of. There's 2 distilleries and a winery all up here, and we're the only brewery. So brewery, winery, 2 distilleries. About to be a 3rd distillery that's doing agave liqueur because they can't call it tequila. But the agave plants are 20 feet across, and they grow better than they do in Jalisco. So
Wow.
kind of fun.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Might be good.
Yeah, and the vodka they make at Ale Works Distillery is made from the pineapples.
No way.
So they actually distill pineapple to get the sugar base to make vodka. So and then Ocean Vodka, which is the other one, is straight down there, and they do sugar cane and then seawater. So I think they're one of the only organic vodkas too, which is pretty cool. So and that's a really cool spot to visit. So then we've got like a whole little upcountry craft beverage circuit you can do.
Why would you not do this? Why would you not? Listen, man, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ben, Larry, thanks, guys, for joining. Cheers.
Appreciate it. Aloha.